Hi, I'm Bryony or Mum Chatter, and I'm just starting a vlog because as a single parent I feel a bit underrepresented on social media and in the media in general. And when you're a one-man band, advice like get your partner to do ... is really not very helpful. So I thought I'd start a vlog, get some discussions out there about more solutions for single parents. So I have one daughter who's 14 months and a ball of energy, keeps me on my toes. We get up to lots, so you can also follow me on Instagram, which is just Mum Chatter as well, and see what we get up to there. So I wanted to talk about breastfeeding, which is quite an intimate topic for a first vlog, but it is Breastfeeding Awareness Week, and also I get asked about breastfeeding loads, more than my birthing story, which when I think about it makes sense, but I'm not very squeamish, so I always love to hear people's birthing stories. So I'm not a medical professional. I've had no kind of breastfeeding training except for the experience I've been through, which is quite a roller coaster, and I've been through quite a lot to be able to breastfeed, so I feel like I've got a story to tell. It's in the media a lot, especially with Breastfeeding Awareness Week, about the UK having the lowest rate of breastfeeding in the world. I think they all quote an article that was written back in 2016 by the Lancet. I'll post a link below. And they quoted that by the time the child is 1, only 1 in 200 women in the UK is still breastfeeding. And after my experience with breastfeeding, I can completely understand why it is tough and quite a struggle, especially at the beginning. I think it's really well publicised, the benefits of breastfeeding, and I found when I was pregnant it was really like rammed down my throat, like this is good for you, this is good for your child. So that's well publicised already, so that's obviously not working. So I think we should actually be talking more about the problems people can face with breastfeeding and how to overcome them. A little bit about my breastfeeding journey, because I could chat till the cows come home about this subject, but a little bit of what I went through. So I got mastitis 5 times in total, 3 of which I was in hospital with for considerable amounts of time, because it was that serious and it was so painful. Thrush, which obviously you pass from yourself to your daughter and back to you, so I've had to deal with that. I've had milk blisters, like you name it, I got all the wounds. I've also had to deal with people making comments about me breastfeeding my child in public, which is incredibly hurtful and demoralising, but also really scary when you're a single mum on your own breastfeeding. And then I also had to deal with the low milk supply fear, which is really scary. And I've overcome all of that, and I'm still breastfeeding now. So here are 6 things that I'd wish I'd prepared for before, that would have made my breastfeeding journey a lot more comfortable. The first one is set up a support group. So this is something I really wish I'd done. It would have made my journey a lot easier. What I really should have done is found out the local breastfeeding groups, local support groups, local breastfeeding friendly cafes, and visited them when I was pregnant. So I knew where they were, I knew what days they were on, and I had familiar faces when I went there with my child. So when I started getting the problems, there was somewhere to go straight away. People could have possibly picked up the problems before I felt the effects of them if I'd had that all set up ready to go. And also a really positive environment for you to feed your child in. I've linked below the NHS website, which details how to find out what local feeding groups or support groups are in your area. Second one is have some really good resources before you start out, and study them before you start. So things like the latch when the baby first starts feeding is so important, and that's really tricky to master. I've linked below again some one video in particular that I found really useful when I was breastfeeding that really helped me. It has tips for if you're a larger busted lady, which is quite hard to come across because a lot of them don't really help you when you've got a bigger bosom and your boobs going everywhere and small mouth on a baby, large boob. It's a little bit more daunting. I'd also researched different positions to breastfeed in. Different ones work for different people. I personally couldn't breastfeed in the lying position for the first 6 months because it just didn't work for either of us, but loads of people go on about how that's amazing and really relaxing for them. So different positions work for different people. I know I did a lot of research and I'd read all the books before, but actually when my child arrived, it all just went in one ear and out the other. I was like, I don't remember how to do this. I don't remember anything I've watched. So having the links there, having the resources ready that you can refer back to is a good idea. Number 3, get a really comfy place where you're going to breastfeed. So I am Stinge Master 3000. So when I was looking at breastfeeding chairs, I was like, there's absolutely no way that I'm spending that money on a specific chair to breastfeed. I will just feed on the sofa or in my bed. And actually now I look back on it, after everything I went through and how difficult and painful and how much time I spent breastfeeding as well, I would definitely just buy the chair, just to make myself more comfortable. But you don't need to buy a chair, just get all the cushions, all the pillows. I used my sleeping pillow that I bought for when I was pregnant, which was £9 in Sainsbury's, and it was just a really long pillow, and I used to wrap that round myself. It would support my back and my daughter, and it was amazing. So you can just get all the cushions. But yeah, I definitely have a designated spot where you're going to feed that you've got all the cushions there. And also you've got a little kind of breastfeeding supply kit set up. Especially in the evenings, I found that my daughter cluster fed for hours, and I mean a really, really long time. And I'd just be glued to this spot with no one to help me, no one to fetch me a cup of tea, no one to fetch me water. I was just there getting dehydrated, being like, please go to sleep. After that, I had a little box. It had a bottle of water, it had snacks, it had magazines, it had the TV remote, everything that I needed just to sit there for hours feeding her. My 4th bit of advice to myself would be, don't buy warm nursing clothes. You will be so hot, you'll just be like stripping off all the layers. Maybe get like one jumper for the winter, as you have a convenient flap, but just buy all the like little strappy tops, because you can always layer up. You can always put a jumper or a cardigan on. It's not going to affect the breastfeeding process, and it is so warm. Well, I found it warm anyway, breastfeeding. You also don't have to get specific nursing clothes. You can just get things with stretchy necklines. I had like 2 tops, so one could go up, one could go down, and that worked just as well as a normal breastfeeding top and cost minimal amounts. But if you do want to get good quality breastfeeding clothes, that is also fine, because you can sell them on eBay and actually get a lot of your money back on them. I think most of my clothes that I sold on eBay, I got at least a third of the price of the original back, and I also bought quite a lot of good quality nursing clothes off eBay as well, so there's bargains to be had on eBay. But word of warning for people who are larger chested and nursing bras, they are rubbish. They are so unsupportive, it's untrue. I ended up having to buy extra large, just the bandeau type sleeping bras that were massive and had no support underneath. So I just bought them in the larger size, sewed up the band at the bottom so it fit my chest, and in order for it to fit my boobs, it just had to be the XXL. So I had to alter them for them to fit for nighttime wearings. And then in the day, I just found that because your boobs are constantly changing size as your milk regulates, so they're like massive one week, much smaller the next, then like one boob's bigger than the other, and just any nursing bra I bought, it might fit me for a week, but after that I just couldn't cope. Just gave up the ghost. So unsupportive. So I just ended up buying sports bras, which seemed to manage the fluctuating size much more. It was slightly more inconvenient to wrap your boob out, but I could still do it, and they were so much more comfortable and so much more accommodating than nursing bras that I just gave up with those. I just could not find one that fit at all. My fifth bit of advice would be to not compare to other babies. I mean, breastfeeding is completely different to formula feeding, so your baby will be on a completely different schedule to that. It's digested completely differently, so definitely don't compare to formula fed babies, because they just drink different amounts and digest it in different ways. But also with breastfeeding, every child is different. Sit there and watch, oh my god, she's only had 5 minutes, or she's had 40 minutes now. Don't sit there and do that. You will drive yourself nuts. If you're worried about that you're not producing enough milk, you just look for the normal signs of a child not getting enough nutrients, which is how many dirty nappies, how many wet nappies. I think it's about 4 or 5 a day, but your health visitor or doctor will be able to advise you if you're worried about how many they should be having for their age at that stage. But also that they're putting on weight and they're growing well. That indicates that they're thriving. So I always, when you go to the health visitor checkups, just make sure they plot the child's weight on the graph for you, so you can see what percentile they're following on the chart. They will go above and below that and dip up and down, but as long as they're following that general trend, they're having enough wet and dirty nappies, then they're getting what they need. I think people worry about their baby being really fussy and crying or unlatching themselves and fussing and think, oh, it's to do with my milk. But there could be so many reasons that your child is doing that. The last piece of advice to myself I would give is don't buy a rubbish pump and then sit there and think, oh yeah, I'm going to be Mother Nature with all this milk flowing and I'll just have a massive stockpile in the freezer. That's not going to happen. For some people, yes, it absolutely does, and they have no problem expressing. But in my case, expressing was challenging, and just my boobs did not seem to be designed to express milk. I mean, I got worried because when I was expressing, I would get 1-2 ounces out in a half an hour session. I was like, oh, I don't have any milk. And then I went to the weighing clinic and I got my daughter weighed before and after she'd had a feed, and she went up by 7 or 8 ounces from one side. So I was like, oh, she is actually getting loads of milk. I just can't get that said milk out. And what I ended up doing is, before, when I was being Stinge Master 3000, I bought a really cheap pump. That didn't really work, so I panicked, went out, bought a really expensive electric one, which also didn't work. And I got really upset about it, and I just put them away in a box. And then when I had to go back to work, I was like, oh no, I really need to think about trying to express again so I can build up a store for when I'm at work. And I ended up doing more research on it, and I just got a really good quality hand pump, which I wasn't getting massive amounts of milk out, but I was getting enough per side that it would give her 1 or 2 feeds a day, and then she just had to be topped up with formula for the rest. But it would have saved me so much money if I'd have just done that in the first place and not bothered going around getting expensive electric pumps that didn't work. The only electric pump that would work for me is the one that costs like £2,000 that they have in the hospital. Another good thing about the hand pump is when I went back to work, I did have a discreet room where I could go to express, but I think when you crack out an electric pump and if someone's walking past and they hear this, it could be really obvious and embarrassing, whereas the hand pump was nice and discreet, fit in my bag, everything detached so easily, it came with the separate sterilised bottles, though I could just put them straight in the fridge, and it was so easy and convenient, and I just wish I'd done that before. So those are the 6 things I wish I'd known before I started my breastfeeding journey. I think it's a hard fact, but as a parent, whatever you do, you're going to be judged. by one side or the other. So I think you just need to find what works for you and your child and just follow that, because that will be the best solution for you. And I think you just have to find the people that support the decisions you're making and stick with them, and anyone who doesn't agree with what you're doing, just distance yourself from them. Goodbye, haters. Please comment if you have any questions. I'd be really happy to help and answer in any way that I can. And yeah, subscribe if you want to see more videos, which I'll be posting soon. Hi, I'm Bryony of Mum Chatter 0 followers fame. Oh god, that looks really bad. Maybe I could talk like this. My sister has definitely used this. Awake. Just to start it. Oh, those stupid bells, shut up. Bells and my child again. Hashtag single parent life. Oh, I said her name. God's sake. What is wrong with you? This is so much harder than it seems. I'm just going to talk about nothing because I can't get words out. And we're still breathing. Yes, that's good. What people would blah 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 blah.